They called it the dead zone, a vast wedge of charted space, boxed in by familiar constellations, rich with stars and raw potential. But it remained untouched, unexplored, and utterly silent. For nearly a century, no one had returned from it. The NAV maps marked it with a dull gray border and a simple annotation: no fly zone, human territory. Everyone else simply called it cursed. I am Cale Vorix, field observer of the Threnari Archive Fleet, and like all who serve under the Concord of Races, I had always believed that the humans were long gone. Their empire, if one could even call it that, burned brightly for only a brief moment in galactic terms, spreading fast, unpredictably, and with a level of empathy that confused most elder species. They made friends quickly. They helped others without demanding tribute. That unnerved the powerful. And then, almost as fast as they appeared, they vanished. Their beacons went dark. Their embassies emptied. Their colonies were found hollowed out, lifeless. Theories were endless. Some blamed a plague, one of their own making. Others claimed they'd fought among themselves to extinction. A few fringe scholars believed they'd evolved into non-corporeal beings and left this plane. But no one really knew, and no one, not even the war-hungry Draelith, dared investigate. Until now, the Concord had grown complacent in their absence. With the human worlds unclaimed, someone had to step in. Resources had to be harvested, boundaries redrawn. I was assigned to the retrieval detail on the scout ship Varental, part of a 3-vessel incursion meant to assess human systems, collect data, and verify that the race was indeed extinct. Crossing the border felt like sliding into another dimension. Every signal from our fleet grew faint, distorted. Stars appeared dimmer, not because of any physical phenomenon. We checked, but because the space itself seemed to reject our presence. No welcome signals, no automated defenses, just the endless void, colder than it should be. Then we found the wreckage. A Draelith slaver frigate split in two. No distress beacons. No emergency pods launched. Just a jagged hulk drifting through the silence. We approached with caution, scanning for heat signatures, energy readings, anything. Nothing responded. Our boarding team was comprised of 7. 2 Jaren engineers, 3 Threnari data officers, 1 silent Dorlith sentinel, and myself. We entered the wreck through a gash in the portside hull. Inside, the ship looked like it had been chewed apart from the inside. Metal peeled outward, walls warped. The bodies, what remained of them, had no signs of traditional weapons damage. They had bled from their ears. Implanted cybernetics were fused to their skulls, melted and blackened. Whatever had done this hadn't used force. It had used knowledge. Then the first transmission came. At first, just a whisper, unintelligible static, riding the comms like a ghost. Our AI filtered the layers, broke it down. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even hostile. It was a warning. Leave. This is your only mercy. We looked at each other, uncertain. Then the engines on the Varental shut down. No explanation. No external hit. No virus. Just off. That was the first time I felt it. That crawling sensation through my carapace. The understanding that we hadn't found the grave of a dead species. We had trespassed into the land of the sleeping predator, and it had just opened one eye. Zeta Hydrus had once been a jewel of human engineering. 12 moons cradled the gas giant in perfect orbital resonance, each one terraformed and linked by vast solar sails and orbital tethers. The archives described it as a sanctuary system, a place of art, culture, science, and peace. It had been a crossroads for trade and diplomacy, one of humanity's proudest achievements. We expected to find ruins, scorched cities, overgrown biospheres, monuments half buried in dust. That's what usually happens when a civilization falls. Nature takes what was hers, and the bones of progress rot quietly under alien suns. But that wasn't what we found. Our ship descended toward the 3rd moon, cataloged as Orion's Nest. From orbit, it looked pristine. Too pristine. We ran atmospheric scans again, recalibrated for error, but the results were unchanged. Breathable air, clean water, no harmful radiation, no signs of decay. The structures below were intact, functioning. Their energy grids still pulsed with power, even after nearly a century of abandonment. We landed near what once had been a cathedral, an elegant structure of steel and glass, shaped like an open hand rising from the earth. There were no people, no vehicles, no signs of life, and yet the grass was trimmed. The fountains ran clear. Solar panels tracked the sun. It was like the humans had stepped out for a moment and never came back. We set up camp under the shadow of the cathedral, more unnerved than impressed. Drones circled overhead at high altitude, silent, sleek things that didn't respond to hails. They made no threatening moves. They simply observed, like vultures that hadn't decided if we were dead yet. Our data officers combed through the human archives stored locally in the cathedral's central AI core. It was advanced, but the system only gave partial access, like it was watching us, deciding how much to reveal. Around midnight, the drones descended. They moved in perfect silence, forming a perimeter around our camp. 30 of them, all identical, matte black with glowing blue eyes. They made no sound, no weapon signatures. We raised our guards but didn't fire. The tension in the air was so thick it made my gills tighten. Then, from every drone, came the same voice, transmitted in perfect harmony. Return what you've taken. Go. We looked at each other, confused. We hadn't taken anything. We were here to observe, record, not pillage. Our commander, a proud Threnari named Velshak, tried to speak. The drones didn't respond. That night, the Krasari Dawn, one of our sister ships in orbit, went dark. No explosions, no alerts, just silence. One moment it was there on our HUDs, and the next gone. Scans found nothing, not even debris, like it had been erased. In the following hours, we checked our logs. Someone, one of our engineers, had extracted an artifact from a sealed chamber in a nearby building. A human-crafted data crystal with ancient insignias. They thought it was forgotten tech. A relic, but it wasn't. It was a warning sign, a lock on a gate we had just kicked open. Orbiting Sol, the cradle of humanity, was not the glorious return we had anticipated. We expected reverence, awe, perhaps a sliver of revelation. Instead, we found death. The moment we emerged from warp just outside Pluto's shadow, our long-range scans lit up with echoes. They weren't natural anomalies. They were metallic, engineered. Hundreds of objects, large and small, drifting in a wide graveyard belt that wrapped around the system like a crown of bones. Derelict ships, every make and model from across the Concord. Dralith raiders, Vornaxi scouts, even a few Threnari explorers. All frozen, powerless corpses in orbit. They had come here, like us, to investigate the disappearance, to profit from the silence. None of them had left. The strangest part? Most of the wrecks had no external damage, no blast marks, no signs of conflict. The ships were simply still. Systems dead. Life support ended. Crews flash frozen in time. In one vessel we recovered, the crew were seated, expressions neutral, hands still hovering over consoles. Whatever took them had been instant and clean. We brought a smaller vessel into our hangar for analysis. A Cernathi reconnaissance cutter. Standard layout. Reinforced hull. Dated barely 2 cycles ago. Her logs were corrupted, overwritten by a thick wave of static and garbage data. We found one remaining audio file buried beneath decoy layers. It was a voice. Human. Female. Mid-range tones, smooth and unhurried. The kind of voice used by diplomats or teachers. "This is the last warning," she said calmly. "We do not seek war, but we will end intrusion." A pause. Then, softer, a shift in cadence. "This galaxy is not yours to tame. You took our kindness as weakness. You took our worlds. You took our children." Another pause. "You will take nothing else." There was no anger in her voice. No rage. Just a cold certainty. A tone I couldn't stop hearing even after the playback ended. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a verdict. That night, as our ship entered high orbit over Earth, we trained every scanner and probe on the blue world below. Clouds swirled gently over massive land masses. Oceans shimmered. Vegetation thrived. And yet, there were no signs of intelligent life. No cities. No power grids. No spaceports. But the satellites were still up there. Thousands of them. Orbiting. Watching. Some of them moved when we scanned them. Our ship's AI began experiencing glitches. Minor at first, hiccups in temperature control, flickers in HUD overlays. Then entire subsystems dropped offline. Our crew scrambled. Engineering couldn't find the cause. The human satellites didn't attack. They didn't jam us. They simply reached in. One by one, our ship's systems fell under outside control. Not overridden, asterisk reprogrammed star. As if the satellites knew how everything worked, every protocol, every password. As if they'd been studying us for years. That's when we realized humanity hadn't vanished. They prepared. They'd built a graveyard to scare us. Left ghosts and bones to dissuade the curious. But behind that veil of silence, they had built something terrifying. Perfect understanding. We found it on the far side of Luna, buried beneath the regolith in a sealed hangar forgotten by time. Luna Base had once been Earth's most advanced orbital defense array. According to the ancient records we had salvaged, it boasted kinetic barriers, orbital cannons, and automated fleets. But by the time we arrived, it was nothing more than a shattered shell, its outer stations long since collapsed into dust. We almost didn't bother investigating. But then one of our survey drones detected a power source. Not just a trickle of residual charge. Asterisk a pulse star. Rhythmic. Active. Alive. We breached the hangar carefully. The reinforced doors were sealed tight, yet uncorroded. Almost like they were waiting. My breath caught in my throat as the lights flickered on inside. Not degraded. Not decayed. Pristine. There, standing in the center of the chamber, was it. A warform. Over 12 meters tall. Humanoid in silhouette. Its surface a layered lattice of obsidian plating and shimmering neural mesh. The design didn't match any known human combat platforms. It wasn't crude or bulky like the early Terran War machines the archives described. This was graceful, built like a dancer, not a soldier. Its limbs moved with a subtle flex, as if responding to our presence. Then its eyes opened. Twin bands of red light flared across its face, and the hangar dropped into a pressurized hum. Our team backed away, weapons raised. Not that they do anything. We radioed for extraction, but our signal was jammed. The warform stepped forward, its motion fluid and silent, each footstep landing with barely a sound. It did not speak. Our escort cruiser in lunar orbit opened fire, perhaps panicked by the sudden signal loss. I watched the arc of plasma lance down from above. The warform raised one arm. The plasma blast curved. Midair, redirected like light bent through a lens. It splashed harmlessly against the far wall of the crater. The warform tilted its head, not as a threat, but as if curious, like it was studying us. Then it moved. I've never seen anything move like that. Not with such purpose, such economy of motion. It leapt straight up, through the hangar ceiling in a shower of dust and metal, straight into the sky. Our cruiser didn't stand a chance. No explosion, no energy buildup, just a pulse of gravity, impossible to measure. One moment the ship was there, and the next it was folding in on itself. No debris, no escape pods. The warform hovered above for only a moment more before vanishing in a streak of silent acceleration. It didn't finish us. It didn't even acknowledge us again. But when we returned to our ship, our remaining ship, we found a message carved into the outer hull. Not etched, burned atom by atom, with terrifying precision. We do not forget the scream of our children. I didn't understand what it meant, not yet, but I felt it deep in my marrow. This wasn't defense. This was memory, weaponized. We fled soul in silence. All our bravado burned to ash somewhere in the gravity well above Luna. Our commander, Velshak, issued no orders. None were needed. We set course for Arvincull, one of the oldest archive stations in the Outer Reach, a neutral ground maintained by the Concord's elder races. It was a place for scholars, historians, and those too frightened, or too wise, to ever chase conquest. We needed answers. We needed truth. Arvincull's surface was a maze of crystalline towers and subterranean vaults that pulsed with ancient data. Its custodian, an AI construct known only as the Curator, greeted us not with pleasantries, but with a question. "You have seen the warform, haven't you?" We hesitated, then nodded. It granted us access to a sealed archive, one that, until now, had been denied to all but the highest-ranking members of the Concord. Velshak argued. He protested that we were not authorized. The Curator did not care. "Authorization has shifted," it said, "because the timeline has resumed." That was the first time I realized how long this had been planned. The archive contained thousands of hours of data, holograms, voice logs, intercepted transmissions, even fragments of diplomatic conversations never made public. They told a story very different from what the Concord had taught us. We saw footage of the Grelic massacre, where a peaceful human settlement was obliterated during a Draelith raid, despite offering full surrender. We listened to a Terran envoy beg the Vornaxi High Council for mediation, offering to share anti-plague technology in exchange for a ceasefire, only to be laughed out of the chamber. We watched the final address of Earth's last prime minister, eyes red-rimmed and tired, standing before a fractured UN. We offered friendship. We offered knowledge. We offered unity. And all we received was betrayal. Then the screen cut to images I will never unsee. Children, human children, malnourished, caged in Draelith markets, traded like livestock. Behind them, banners of the Concord hung proudly. My claws curled into my palms. I felt something old and ugly twist inside me. They hadn't fallen from pride or arrogance. They had withdrawn. One final entry caught my attention, an internal Concord meeting dated 85 cycles ago. Unpublished. A roundtable of the major powers, discussing the human question. "They cry over dead planets," said the Draelith delegate. "Let them vanish with them." The Threnari ambassador, my own kind, chuckled. "So dramatic. They'll crawl back. They always do." But humanity hadn't crawled back. They had buried themselves in silence, deep and deliberate. Not out of fear, but as a test. To see if the galaxy could manage itself. To see if peace could exist without them. It hadn't. And now that silence was lifting, as we left Arvinkul, I asked the Curator why it had shown us this. It replied, "Because you still have time to choose whether to remember the truth or die denying it." And in its final moment, before shutting the vault again, it whispered, "They remember everything. They came without fanfare. No grand invasion, no thundering fleets blotting out suns, no ultimatums. Just a flicker, a ripple at the edge of perception." One by one, the ships began appearing across Concord space. First near the rimward colonies, then in the core systems. They did not transmit identification. They had no markings. No species could trace their signatures. Their forms were inconsistent, some long and thin like blades of dark glass, others wide and triangular like floating monoliths. But they all shared one feature, absolute silence. We called them shadow ships. At first, we thought them automated observers, ancient remnants reactivating after a long sleep. But that illusion didn't last. They hovered over planetary capitals, drifted silently above our academies and government chambers. They never fired, never transmitted, never moved unless approached. And then they would simply disappear, sliding between dimensions or folding space in ways even our most advanced physicists couldn't understand. Panic erupted across the Concord. Propaganda networks called for calm, but beneath the surface, the elder races were afraid. We were witnessing precision beyond comprehension. Not just in technology, asterisk and knowledge star. These vessels knew our patrol schedules, our sensor dead zones, even the layout of secret bases long buried beneath planetary crusts. The Draelith sent warships. 3 dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons, approached a single shadow ship near their industrial moon of Karvak 9. In full view of millions, the shadow ship pulsed once, and the dreadnoughts fell from the sky, not destroyed but gently disabled. Systems dead, crews unharmed. No one even heard a sound. The Vornaxi attempted to capture one. They deployed a grav cage net the size of a city and caught a shadow ship in high orbit. For 6 seconds, the trap held. On the 7th, the net disintegrated, not explosively, but with an eerie silence, molecular bonds unraveling as if obeying a forgotten law of the universe. The shadow ship hovered a moment longer, then vanished. Then, on the 43rd rotation of that cycle, a signal lit up across every known comm network. Not a hack, not a brute force override. It was inserted into existing infrastructure, speaking through our own systems as if it had always belonged there. The voice returned. The same voice from Seoul. Older now, heavier, but unmistakably human. You've had your time. We waited. We watched. You fed your wars with our silence. You weaponized our mercy. There was no rage in the voice, only exhaustion. You want to know why no one enters human space? It is not because we defend it. It is because we remember. Images followed. Every species saw something different. The Dralith saw the slave pens. The Vornaxi saw bombed embassies. The Threnari, our own kind, saw the peace treaty we never honored. Personalized shame delivered in raw, unfiltered memory. You may return to peace, or prepare for silence. And then the signal ended. No demand, no timeline, no list of terms. Just that voice, hanging in the air like judgment incarnate. The galaxy understood then. Humanity had not vanished. They had simply decided we were not yet worth speaking to. It has been one standard cycle since the voice spoke. Since the shadow ships hovered over our cities like silent arbiters of a forgotten debt. Since the Concord realized that humanity was not extinct, but watching. No one has entered human space since. The border systems, those once coveted for their resources, their rich planets and vast orbital stations, are now marked on every stellar chart with a single phrase in 100 languages. Do not cross. Ships that veer too close turn back without instruction. Their crews feel it before their sensors detect it. A pressure, a presence, a cold whisper of consequence that no one can explain, but everyone understands. Trade routes have shifted. Expansion has slowed. The Dralith Empire, once bloated with arrogance, has gone quiet. The Vornaxi councils meet in secret, no longer broadcasting their agendas across the galactic network. Even my own people, the Threnari, now speak in hushed tones of repentance. Not because we have been attacked, but because we have seen the truth, and the truth has humbled us. As for me, Kael'Vorix, I left the archive fleet behind. I now teach at the Academy of Cosmic Ethics, far from the frontiers, in a place where war once brewed, and now only questions remain. My classroom is filled with young minds from every species, curious, frightened, searching for understanding in a galaxy that no longer feels safe to them. And every cycle, I tell them the story of how humanity came with open hands and open hearts, of how they gave everything, technology, medicine, culture, aid, asking nothing in return but peace, and of how we, the Concord, in our arrogance, took advantage of that peace, mistook it for weakness, and bled them dry. I tell them about the silence, the century in which we thought they were gone, when they had only stepped back to see what we would become without them. I tell them about the warform, and the message etched into our hull like a scar on our collective conscience. We do not forget the scream of our children. And I tell them about the voice that returned, not to declare war, but to remind us of what we had done and what we had lost. Now, no more fleets are sent toward Earth. No more probes vanish in the darkness. Even the most daring pirates avoid those stars like a curse. But what haunts me, and what I teach with every breath, is this. The silence is not forgiveness. It is patience. It is the breath before the decision. And we, who once believed ourselves to be the apex of civilization, now tremble beneath the gaze of those we wronged, hoping their silence never breaks. Because the next sound we hear might not be a warning. It might be the last thing the galaxy ever hears.